What is it about fairy tales? You hear them all the time as a kid. I guess there's a lot of folklore that's like that, but why do they stick around? I haven't thought about Foursquare since I left the playground. But with fairy tales, I'm always thinking about fairy tales. Connections to fairy tales and other kinds of media. No matter where I go in this boring and mundane world, I'm always seeing connections to fairy tales. Disney does them. TV shows do them. Fantasy books, they all make these illusions. What do they mean? Why do these little traditional entertainment, why does it stick with us? Why do they grow up with us? We have dark retellings of fairy tales. Film noir fairy tales, R-rated comics of fairy tales, graphic adventure video games of fairy tales. Oh wait, that's all this? That's all just Wolf Among Us? Oh. Oh, okay. This is gonna be a long night. But it's nothing Daisy and I can't handle. Right? Welcome to Folkwise. I'm your host, the Big Bad Wolf. I have no idea why I thought this was going to be a good idea. No, hi. I followed a Bigby Wolf makeup tutorial to get this look. I tried to. He's got the tiniest lips. Yeah, so I tried to like go over my lips with like highlighter to make sure it would look like I didn't have a top lip like Bigby Wolf does. So yeah. But I think we put the cherry on top. I think we can really put the glass slipper on the foot. If everyone can hear Jeana right now. Is that Dr. Jeana Jorgensen of the Foxy Folklorist?
Yes.
Hi. Oh my god. I think everyone can hear everyone now.
Okay.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
In the last hour it's been a little crazy, but I really can't complain. Um,
Cool.
hey,
People in the
before we get
chat.
started, tell the chat a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, I'm a folklorist through and through. I did my undergrad at UC Berkeley with Alan Dundas, and I came to Indiana University for my master's and PhD. So I study primarily folk narrative, things like fairy tales, and the kind of range from more traditional tales like the Grimms to contemporary revisions. A lot of gender and sexuality stuff, but I also do a little bit with folk dance and body art.
And tell us about your blog.
Yes. So I was scouted a few years ago for Patheos, which is a really large host of various blogs, mostly about religion and spirituality. So there's like the Catholic channel and the Buddhist channel. I write for the atheist or non-religious channel about the intersections of folklore with lots of things, plus whatever else I'm interested in at the time. So there's a lot of feminist stuff on there, a lot of stuff about sexuality, a lot of just general cultural observations. I talk about teaching. So it's just kind of a space where I write about stuff, and I hope to make it interesting to people.
I just want to let you know you are getting so much love in the chat. Everybody's saying hello to you, Gina.
Oh my God,
Welcome,
chat
welcome.
loves you. Chat
Hey,
loves
everyone.
you.
Chat's hype. The chat is very hype for this, and the
Cool.
chat's ready for us to play eventually.
Oh, hi, Gloria. What's up?
Hey.
One more question I just want to preface now before we really start playing. Because I feel like this is gonna come up, knowing the three of us, and especially you, Jeana. All right, as fast as you possibly can. What is an ATU number?
Okay. Fairy tales cross time and space. They're told in all different languages, and so the titles also change all the time. So Cinderella in English, and that's the title of it. In German, it might be Aschenputtel. In French, it might be Cendrillon. So folklorists gave folktale and fairy tale plots numbers so that we could track them over time and space. So the first guy to do this was Antti Arne, a Finnish folklorist in the 1920s.
And how do you spell Arne? How do you spell that?
Aarne.
Okay.
American folklorist Thompson, who was also at IU, expanded and developed it. So that was the Arne Thompson system, AT numbers. And then German scholar Hans-Jörg Uther, with a whole international team, expanded it as of 2004. So now that's ATU numbers. So Cinderella is tail type 510A. Little Red Riding Hood is 333. We don't actually memorize these most of the time.
I was going to say, how many of these do you have memorized?
Maybe only a dozen or two.
Okay.
But it's useful shorthands, basically to help scholars find things.
24 is still a good number.
Already have so many questions for you just based on this alone. Like that is a lot of numbers. And I know that some of them have like sub numbers, like you can have like 126A or B or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have like those memorized as well for your favorite ones?
Only a couple. So the 425s are the Beauty and the Beast types. So like I think 425A is Cupid and Psyche, and 425C is the classic Beauty and the Beast based on the French tale that evolved into the Disney one. So I know some of those ones. I don't have that many more memorized in the sub numbers, but 510A is Cinderella. 510B is Donkey Skin or the Dress of Gold, Silver, and Stars, which they start out very different. Like Cinderella is oppressed by her stepmother and stepsisters who bully her, and then she gets to go to the balls. 510B, actually her mother dies and her father wants to marry her, and so she gets some magic dresses and gets out of town, and then she goes to the balls and meets the prince. So they really dovetail at the end, but they're considered kind of the same tail type, but 510A starts off differently than 510B.
Wow,
that is so cool. And I think one of the things that, I don't know if you experience this in your classes, but do you ever feel like people think that fairy tales, or particularly the ATU motifs that are numbered, all happen in the past? I feel like people think that they happen in the past, but we can see those patterns today. Do you have just example? TV shows.
Oh, yeah.
Or in any kind of just TV show, I don't know, just in a Cinderella example, I don't know, escaping oppressive father figure to, Prince Charming or whatever is almost like its own trope that exists beyond the fairy tale. Maybe we can get into that in a minute, this sort of like modern retelling.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let me hit play on a modern retelling of some fairy tales, and then we can we can talk about it.
Great.
Oh no, we're gonna start over. Start all the way over.
You're good. You can see the game and everything, right?
I can see the game. Yeah,
Okay.
I can see that we're scrolling through the episodes of the game.
Perfect.
And I did my homework. I reread the first volume of Fables to kind of brush up. And I know this happens before that, but
Oh, you read the first volume of Fables for this?
That's amazing.
So you officially know more than Daisy.
Yeah, you 100% know more than I do.
I mean, at some point I'd read almost all of it, but that was over a decade ago, so I'm kind of fuzzy on some things, so I'll try to avoid dropping spoilers.
Okay. Well, either way, I mean, drop whatever knowledge you have. I think this game's been out for a while, so no need to worry about spoiling.
It's like a 7-year-old game, yeah.
Yeah. If this came out last week, I might say maybe, but yeah, we've got some time. Okay, I've got a question.
Yes.
Question for Jeana. Can you tell us a little bit about this Once Upon a Time framing?
Oh, yes. So this is what
I
you
just
call...
noticed. Yeah, the game starts this way too.
Yeah, this is an opening formula, which fairy tales, I mean, really all distinct genres have formulas, whether it's a formulaic use of language, little pig, let me in kind of a thing, mirror, mirror on the wall, or whether it's more like opening and closing. So a lot of fairy tales in the English language begin with once upon a time or once there lived, and then the closing formulas, and they lived happily ever after. But different languages all have their different formulas too, based on like meter and rhyme within that language. Whereas, in a different genre, like let's say legends, like contemporary legends, those are going to be more like the opening formula might have the fof, the friend of a friend. Oh, I heard it from my sister's hairdresser. There was this guy. So
Right.
a lot of distinct genres have their own kind of distinct formulas that kind of help bookend. We're about to have a narrative experience together. We're going to set up some expectations for the genre we're in. So if I say a priest and a rabbi walk into a bar, that's an opening formula for a joke. Hopefully, I'm not talking about an actual priest and an actual rabbi.
Right.
Crazy if you were.
Or yeah, I was gonna say, or a sexy guy in a loose-fitting business suit walks out of a taxi, as we just saw.
And
Bigby!
Runs into
Listen, mate.
Mr. Toad of Frog and.
I just stepped out the apartment for just a second to see what
Or how do we not
stop
the
damage
Frog
this
or the
truck
Frog
shit is
King?
doing.
I have a couple
Just cut
comments
me a
from the
break,
chat.
I'll get me
So
glamour first thing in the
Fables.
morning.
The one question is
Cross my
Fables a
arm.
book?
Oh, hey, how are we playing
need to
Bigby?
get
How are we
back.
playing Bigby? Are we doing him mean or are we doing him friendly?
Be friendly.
Come on, Bigby.
Yeah.
Say something.
That'd
Okay.
be nice.
You're starting
Yeah.
to scare me.
Yeah, Fables is a graphic novel series
afford to look
by
human. You're
Bill
going to the
Willingham, I
farm.
think,
It's as
with other
simple
guest
as
artists
that.
and authors.
You can't
And it
send
goes
me
on.
up
This is just
to
the
live
first
with
volume.
animals.
It goes on.
Yeah, the first
know
first
what I
volume,
mean?
it's like 5
Go
issues
see a
or 6
witch.
issues.
Get a
I
glamour.
think so.
There's like 200 or something.
Try, mate. The quality of the spout goes down,
Decent
but the
number,
rates
yeah.
keep climbing up. Do you have any idea how much it costs to have an entire family in glamour?
Yeah. And Dude Man 22 notes that guy looks like Dom. You are
I
correct.
don't make the rules.
Gina, I know
Sorry.
you haven't seen Dom yet. Actually, we should
I
probably
can't give you a
we'll
free pass
wait
on
for
this
that.
stuff.
to
You'll
be
see me.
My
unveiled.
hands are tied.
You'll see.
Right.
But
Right.
there may or may not be a
There's too much
costume
at
involved
stake.
in tonight's
Whatever it
show.
costs,
We wish that
it's
there
worth
was.
it. You don't.
Due to our technical
want me
difficulties
catching you out of
earlier, we had to
glamour again.
slightly sidestep it for a moment, but there is a costume
Fucking
involved
hell.
today.
See? This is what
Fucking
I told you
hell.
about, Sheriff. You're just gonna stand there, do something.
Gina, where does
Bigby,
the idea of a
before it
glamour come
completely
from?
tears up the place.
I don't know that one is strictly fairy tales. That
thanks
sounds
for that,
more
Bigby.
like
You're a
supernatural
real
belief that may circulate in adjacent genres. Although
This is
I
the
will
last
note,
straw, Bigby. He has
so
to
part of why
go.
fairy tales are called fairy tales, we can blame the French for that one. Conte du Fée, stories of the
So what
fairies,
set
is
'em
their
off?
phrase that
Who knows
arose in
why
the
it was this time.
1690s or
Man's got a head
so.
trigger.
Oh.
Avoid him as
And
much
so they
as
had a lot of
possible.
fairies as
When did
helpers
he
and as
start
what we
drinking?
would call donor
Sure he
figures. They
had
show up,
stopped.
figure out if you're good or bad, and then they give you magic stuff.
I didn't
And
know
so,
anyone else was up
in
there.
some of the French fairy tales from the 1690s, which were largely authored by women, we would see stories where the girl who's like the good girl of all her siblings would meet a fairy, and the fairy would give her a glamour. So the classic example is by Madame d'Aulnoy, who led a very checkered, interesting life. Her story, Belle Belle, is about this girl named Belle Belle, youngest of 3 sisters. It's like Mulan. Like the father's supposed to go to war, but he can't. So each of the 3 sisters is like, well, I'll just cross-dress and go. But the oldest 2 are kind of rude to a shepherdess who's lost her flock, who's this fairy in disguise. Belle Belle is kind and charming. So the fairy basically says, everyone who sees you is going to assume you're this dude, the Chevalier Fortune or Fortuné. And she basically gives Belle Belle this very convincing cross-dressing glamour. Like to the point where everyone thinks that she is this very charming, gallant guy. She goes into service to the king. The king is like, I rather like this guy. Okay, moving on. And the king's sister falls for Belle Belle. She thinks she's a dude. And there's this like complicated love triangle, and Belle Belle is like slaying dragons and all this stuff. And eventually the king's sister basically is like, oh, Belle Belle assaulted me. So basically like false rape allegations in the 1600s. But then like out of spite, there's poison and this whole other thing, and they're about to burn Belle Belle at the stake, and they rip off her shirt and see that she's a woman. And so this treacherous king's sister dies, and the king is like, oh, well, I liked you a lot anyway, I'll marry you. So that's an example of a fairy glamour that does appear in fairy tales, but otherwise, like, I don't know that we see them 24/7. So I would kind of look to adjacent narrative genres for that.
All right, you said play him nice, so I knocked. I'm at least knocking fiercely. There's a lot of commotion.
No, whoa, hey!
Oh boy, oh good.
You got something on
we
your
have
face.
a hero and a creep, I guess. Isn't that an article? I feel like there's an article about the hero and the creep and the friend.
Fucker. All right, bite you.
Describing the ways that describing the different ways that men treat
What are
assault.
you gonna fucking do, huh?
On
Get
women.
the fuck
like,
out of the way before you get the axe.
I'm trying to remember what it was. It's like like the hero is like the one that is equally as bad as the creep, because both the hero and the creep, the perpetrator and the one who's trying to like fight the creep on behalf of the person who was assaulted, are like equally at fault because they need each other to exist, and at the same time both discredit the survivor's like experiences or desires.
Calm down.
And then the friend is like actually takes the person who was assaulted like needs into consideration and what their desires are, their wishes are.
Interesting.
Oh, I'm pressing buttons so furiously.
I know. I'm like, are you fighting right now?
Yes, I'm fighting. He also said you're gonna get the axe like last time if you're following that.
Did you get an
Like a woodcutter character.
Yeah.
His name's Woody.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a question in the chat. Here is Mario asking, how does Fables compare to Once Upon a Time?
That's an interesting question. So I've only seen the first like 3 or 4 seasons of Once Upon a Time, and that was a while ago. My colleague Christy Williams has done some really great work on Once Upon a Time, if you like journal articles. But yeah, like really similar premise. Like, you know, in Fables, the idea is that the creatures of all these sort of fantasy fairy tale lands have had to flee when the adversary invaded, and they kind of land in New York. And then Once Upon a Time, it's because of a curse that Regina, the queen, puts on all the, well, not all, like the one land of storybook land worth of characters, and they all kind of get placed in this I guess East Coast sort of town without any memories. So in Fables, they know who they are, they're displaced, they're refugees. In Once Upon a Time, at least until people start breaking the curse, they don't know who they are, but then they do. So there's definitely a lot of parallels.
That's interesting.
Oh,
Oops.
What?
I didn't want to like kick his ass with an axe. I'm just here to. Okay, it felt too extreme for like the, I don't know.
It was too intense.
Right, so
it was
a little less.
Okay. I'll hit him with the axe.
Yeah. So
Please,
the
Woody.
interesting thing about Once Upon a Time is that it's part of, I guess, Disney's larger properties, and so they can use a lot of the visual references that are pretty tightly held under copyright. So, you know, Belle with Beauty and the Beast in the yellow dress, like all that stuff. So that's really interesting. Whereas Fables, like a lot of other contemporary fairy tale retellings, has to sort of allude to without treading on dangerous ground.
Shut up.
Interesting. I mean, I guess, like, how does that compare to something like Disneybounding?
You broke my
Which is like, have you heard of Disneybounding? Oh, this is so cool.
Disneybounding's crazy. Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. Okay, so because of cosplay, copyright, slash Disney theme parks not allowing costumes in their parks, like you can't wear a costume to the park unless you are one of their like employees, basically, for all kinds of reasons.
Look, this is just the start of a shitty night
People want
for
to
me.
cosplay characters that are represented in Disney films, but they can't be that character. So, like, you can't go to the park as Elsa, but you might be able to wear
I let you slap me around for
that
a
are
while.
really close to
You're lucky
Elsa.
I'm
Like,
not
you might be
charging
wearing
extra.
a blue dress, and you might be able to wear, like, whether it's a wig or maybe that's even too much. Maybe you can, like, put your hair in a fishtail braid and kind of, like, you know, have a bag that has, like, ice or a snow scene on it or something like that, and then you're sort of like implying to be that character, but are a more modern version of that character. So people like do this. I don't know how to describe it. It's like half cosplaying. You're fully cosplaying, but in a way that's not to the commercialized representation of that character.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it sounds almost like you're trying to kind of insert yourself into a liminal space where you're like, don't sue me, please, but I'm also doing the thing.
Yeah, exactly. You're like in this liminal, like, in between space between, like, I really want to be this character, but I'm gonna just skirt around the laws or just get around the laws of copyright a little bit, so that way I don't get in trouble and can be at Disneyland and you know that I'm me, but wink wink, I'm wearing this yellow dress and I'm Belle or whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I took it personal. I took it personal when he brought up that he wanted to cut me open and put my fill my belly up with stones again. It didn't sit right with me.
Which is from the Grimm's version of Little Red Riding Hood. It's not in every version.
Yeah. See, that's why you're here.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so I mentioned French fairy tales is kind of a very early influence on the genre as a whole. Charles Perrault, who was sort of a nobleman in Louis XIV's court, he published his fairy tales. It was like kind of aimed at a child audience, but like wink wink, nudge nudge, kind of like they're also clearly by and for adults. So in his Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf goes to grandma's house, each grandma girl gets in bed with the wolf, and then it's just the end of story. Like, there's no woodcutter, there's no rescue, the girl dies because there's like a little moral appended to the end about like, oh, not all wolves are hairy on the outside. Sometimes they're very smooth talking, and you should watch out for those wolves, like sexual predators, kind of wolves. And it wasn't until the Grimm's version in the early 1800s that we see this whole, like, this story is explicitly aimed at children who want to behave. There are whole, like, rows and rows of instructions that Little Red Riding Hood's mother gives her to stay on the path and don't talk to strangers and, like, be polite, blah, 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 and then she gets eaten by the wolves. And then the woodcutter has to come around and, like, redeem her, kind of a thing.
Okay.
He's gonna be fine, don't worry.
Yeah, I was like, in how many, like, fairy tales is this kind of, like, are cursing and choking and walking around with an axe in your head? Is this a thing that is represented in fairy tales, or is this like a Disney-fied or like version of fairy?
Mention it.
This just seems so adult.
I'm just getting
so again, like the earliest fairy tales like were by and for adults. Like kids were probably like a side audience, but it wasn't necessarily aimed at them because, you know, the way we tend to think of it in fairy tale studies, like coming from a folkloristic perspective, like there were oral folktales circulating before anyone ever really thought to write them down.
Yeah.
So, you know, like what would adults do in the long winter nights when you'd already kind of pulled in the harvest? You just kind of like sit around the fire, you know, women might be knitting or, you know, you'd have your hands busy, but you could like be telling stories. So a lot of these sort of earlier folk tales from more like peasant and agrarian communities, as well as those that are still being told, like we have collections from the 60s, 70s, 80s from different parts of Europe, from the Middle East, and so on. Like, people still tell folk tales and fairy tales in some communities. A lot of them are adult. A lot of them are violent. There's a version of Beauty and the Beast called King Pig, or kind of an adjacent tale type, where this woman wishes, she's a queen, she wishes for a child, even if it's a pig, and so she gives birth to a pig. And this prince, who's a pig, says, I want to marry, I want a wife, I want to marry. And the first girl, like, refuses to get into bed with this pig that she's just been forcibly married to. And so he kills her and asks for another bride. So, like, you do get some violence in these even more, like, traditional fairy tales, even if it's not what people think of, because from the Grimms onward, they were kind of more marketed towards children and, like, a children's literature sense. And the Disney, like, really hopped on board and ran with that, to the point where when people see stuff like Fables or this game, they're all like, oh, it's a return to the darker, original, twisted ones, or like, oh, it's so different than Disney. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much, like, it is both a return to earlier versions, but it's also a response to Disney.
That was
If you don't answer my
awesome
questions, I
explanation.
can't help you.
That makes so much sense. Yeah.
I'm answering
Tara
them
Becca
the
asked
best
in
that
the
I
chat whether or not you've seen the show Disenchantment, where a prince is transformed into a pig
feel
for
like we've
a
met
solid
before.
3 seasons. And I
probably
I
have.
love the show
We all sort of
Disenchantment.
knew
If
each
you
other
haven't
at
seen it,
one
it's a
point or
fun
another,
watch. Honestly, I think it's probably
things
Matt
change,
Groening's
I
best
guess.
work. Okay, people are
guess.
gonna fight me in the chat about it, but it gets better every season. And my partner and I just finished the last season from it. The pig apparently is voiced by Matt Berry, says the chat. Have you seen Disenchantment?
I've
I
seen
love Matt
part of
Stop.
season
We
1.
don't
I
have
think,
to
like,
make
it started
any
getting
more of a
deep,
thing
and then
out
I
of
was
it than it
like, I'm
already
out. But,
is.
like, I agree, it's very funny. It's a really clever take on fairy tales. Yeah, it's
sure?
it's pretty funny.
It
But you don't get
he's had
demons in
enough.
fairy tales very often.
For tonight, at least.
That's true. And there's also
Wouldn't be
like this
surprised if he has an
whole
axe to grind.
I mean,
though.
like, spoilers, cover your ears if you hear it, but there's a steampunk arc,
That
which I think is an
wasn't
interesting
intentional.
parallel to, like, thinking about
Sorry.
very well-defined genres. I feel like fairy tale in the minds of most people is a very well-defined genre, despite
How much was it
how
owed you?
often people try to, like, poke at the genre.
100.
And I
I'm
feel like
guessing
steampunk is
it'd be
kind
bad
of
for you to
in the
show up
same way in a
empty-handed.
totally different direction.
Mhm.
But
I'll be fine.
I love Disenchantment. I would love to see your video essay on Disenchantment if you ever end up watching the whole thing, because it's a great show. Yeah, there's not really a lot of demons, but there is a demon in that show. But
Yeah,
he's
I
a
remember-
cat. Maybe
all I got.
maybe the joke is that he's a cat.
Help, right?
I mean, he's
Pig.
not really a cat,
It's
but
okay.
everybody in the
I'll
show
be fine.
seems to believe that
You've
he's
done
a
it,
Right.
cat.
really.
I don't
Yeah.
Just,
So
that
that
one's-
the audience knows.
okay.
I'll probably get back into that one at some point.
You got me.
It's a
out
good
of
one.
bad
I will
situation
tell
back
you.
there.
I will
Thanks.
like tell you too. It gets more
I'm still
feminist
gonna
and
need a
more
statement.
cool as like time
I
goes
have
on,
to
and I
go
very
drop
much
off
love that show a lot.
what I have.
Meet me back at my office then.
Yeah,
It's a
so
little
Dom,
late for an
fill us
office
in on
visit,
what's
Sheriff.
happening.
I'll
a
swing
little
by
bit.
your apartment.
Who's
I
this person?
You
so
live in the
he
smallest
the
apartment in
woodsman
the
was
Everyone knows that.
assaulting
Good to
this
You should get
woman, presumably a
shit.
sex worker that he did not
I don't
pay.
use that term
Mr. Toad
Someone
called
says
me
it's
because they
bad.
were making too much noise, and I couldn't resist a fight with my old nemesis, but I ended up
Or maybe not.
both like not kicking the woodsman's ass too hard and giving her some money because you said play
need
him
to tell
play
you
him like a good guy.
What is it?
Okay.
I'm glad you're seeing that through.
Yeah, and she just told me
A
you're
good
not as
guy.
bad. You're not as bad as everyone says you are.
Ooh, who says
I'll
he's
see you
bad? Who's telling her?
What do you think Bigby means?
I mean, I guess. Honestly, all I can think of is Ned Bigby from Ned's Declassified School Survival.
That's Ned Big Bad Wolf. That's actually Bigby Wolf's kid.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
do
that's like deep into the lore of the show that they reveal that, but that's actually true.
Do you know? I just found the actors, Ned Bigby actors TikTok that he
Oh
just
my God.
created,
Where's-
like 2 weeks
Does
ago.
Coconut Head have a TikTok?
I don't think Coconut Head has a TikTok, but Ned Bigby went to Coconut Head's house and wore his wig around, and there's
my
a TikTok
God.
about that. I'm sorry, Gina. This is a very niche show. What? The Nickelodeon show that was about how to survive middle school, and Ned Bigby was like the main character and he was writing a school survival guide. And
I think if you've ever downloaded a song on Napster, you've never seen Ned's Declassified.
That's fair.
No comment.
Okay, I like this shady alleyway.
I
Very
love
cool.
the
Are we in
pinks,
a-
the pinks and purples and golds in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, fairy tales, they're so interesting because there's like this intersection between text and oral history, right? Like people telling the fairy tale. And I was just thinking about Dom mentioning the colors in this game. Like, I wonder how somebody's trying to, thinking on the back end of the game, trying to choose colors that suit fairy tales, but have them be a very literary genre. I know you can elicit colors in the way that you write and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
is this anything?
Yes, it is actually.
Okay,
So,
okay.
there's a famous Swiss scholar, Max Luthi, or Luthi, depending on how you pronounce it. And he's written a fair bit about like style in European fairy tales. And so one of the things we see in a lot of
No walking
European
on the grass,
folk tales
no
and fairy
white
tales, so
doors.
like kind of that
Made a
hybrid
sign,
between like
everything.
slightly literary but slightly folksy as well, like the Grimms, which kind of straddles that boundary. You see in their style, they're drawn to primary colors. So you get a lot of black, white, and red. You get metallic tones.
Mhm.
So if you think like some classic fairy tales, like Snow White often begins with a woman who's a queen wishing for a child,
Why'd you hide?
and she's like sewing or something. She pricks her finger. She's like kind of leaning out the window, as red as blood on the snow through this ebony black window frame, kind of a thing. So you see a lot of these like really kind of almost primal colors, like white and black have a lot of symbolism in Western culture. Red, obviously, blood, life-giving, all this other stuff. And then as far as other colors, you get a lot of gold and silver. So in one of the versions of 510B, where this girl is running away from her incestuous father, first she asks him for a dress as gold as the sun, and then a dress as silver as the stars, and then a dress as something as the night sky, or as bright as the moon, or whatever. And then a lot of heroines have like golden hair as kind of a symbol of like virtue and riches. Rumpelstiltskin, the other one that starts with an R, has her spinning straw into gold, or her, him doing it for her. So you do get a lot of these like primary colors. It's kind of like bursts of, I think, maybe some symbolism. And so in literary tales that are more like start their life on the written page and mostly stay there, obviously authors can have a lot more leeway to kind of play with things and invent symbolism or tap into existing symbolism. So I agree, the color palette here is really interesting. I think it's fairy tales in an urban setting. So you're going to have a lot of these sort of the concrete gray that kind of goes slightly almost into violet or periwinkle in the night light. So I think there's more room to be evocative because we're also in a more explicitly visual genre right now.
Yeah.
Totally.
Daisy, by the way, that was Beauty. And like Jeana was saying earlier, like Once Upon a Time can do Belle in like a yellow dress. That was more just Beauty. She's a very beautiful lady sneaking out of the apartment and saying, "Don't tell Beast you saw me."
Flycatcher needs to dust
Don't tell
this
my
guy.
beastie. New guy neighbor asks if we can wake the guard up.
Hey,
Can we wake him
You
up?
wake?
Is that? Oh, apparently we can.
You can try.
Yeah, we can attempt to.
Nope, he's asleep.
Nope. Okay, that's good. All right. What are we finding? Mailbox.
Mailbox.
been a while since
Seems
I got
legit.
any mail.
Yeah.
Did I get mail?
7th day in a row.
Okay.
7th day in a row you didn't get mail. What did you get? What did you get on the 8th previous day? What?
Oh.
What'd you have before?
Subscription to like, I don't know, like a hunting magazine because I'm a wolf.
I guess. No. Is Wolf of Wall Street anything? I feel like this is.
I think that's a movie.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I just. Yeah, it's. I'm just thinking
Oh.
about. I mean, he's
Bigby.
not.
Hey,
Spoilers.
wait
he's-
This isn't good.
Oh,
Have you seen my
uh-oh.
wife? Have you
He's
seen
not
Beauty?
a wolf in the Wolf of Wall Street, in a literal sense, unlike this
So,
game. But
Have you?
I'm just getting Wolf of Wall Street vibes.
Motherfucker.
Mario says Wolf of Wall Street is a fairy tale of a guy who wants to become rich on Wall Street. Well, that's true. We do know American Dream equal fairy tale. All right, is Bigby getting followed?
By
That guy.
the Beast?
Yeah, the Beast. Is Beast
I think
mad?
Beast was looking for beauty.
Beast was looking for
No.
beauty, yeah.
Do you think Bigby has beauty though?
No, he just said he'd seen beauty, and I just
Oh,
cocked an eyebrow at him
Bye.
and tried not to say anything. Oh, the classic detective pour cold water on your
Yeah,
face. I do that
classic.
all the time.
Do you do it?
I do it
when you
so
do it,
much.
Do you think about being a detective when you do it?
Yeah, I think I'd either be a detective or like a single dad.
There are two.
Or like Mr. Mom, yeah.
There are 2 points on the XY axis.
Can I have a beer?
Why do I even own this? Should have got a smaller one.
Or wait, what is that product placement? What was that?
Have you noticed all of like the fake ads and stuff? Like there was a Sylvester Stallone
Chinese
movie,
food.
like the Sylvester Stallone movie Cobra. There was Mongoose.
Bluebeard's fine.
Yes.
Oh, Bluebeard.
Gina, who's Bluebeard?
Never
I'm so glad you asked.
I'm gonna be
there's-
honest. I only know Bluebeard as a character from Fables.
So
Or that's
in
where
the-
I first.
there's-
That's where I first met him.
There's a tale. Yeah, okay. It's giant pig on the sofa. Cool.
Hey,
Cool.
Colin.
So there's a
Colin.
tale by Charles Perrault. So again, 1690s France, but there are other versions of this tale type floating around. There's this dude named Bluebeard. He's fantastically wealthy, but he has a blue beard, which some people find off-putting.
Mhm.
And he courts this kind of younger sister from a family that's not too well off. And she's like, yeah, Beard's kind of creepy, but he's rich, so I'll marry him. And so they go to his fantastic like castle. It's all decked out. There's so much bling. He gives her all the keys to everything and says this room has gold, this room has jewels, and so on. But this is the key to my personal closet or wardrobe or office or whatever. Don't go in there. And then he promptly, after their wedding, leaves on a business trip. So she's cavorting around in all the riches, and then she gets really curious, so she really wants to find out, and she opens the door, and she's so
Got a
shocked
smoke?
that she drops the key into the pool of blood from his other murdered wives' bodies.
Dun dun dun. Oh my god.
And she
Whoa.
freaks out and picks up the key and tries to like clean it off, but the bloodstain won't come off. And then right then he gets home from his business trip, and in the version by Charles Perrault, like her sister
keep
is
sneaking
like
up
with
the
her
form,
chilling
I
at the
guess.
castle, and so the sister is like, I'm gonna go try and summon our brothers to see if they get here in time, because Bluebeard is like, hey wife, how's it going? Where are all my keys? Like, oh, here you go. Well, where's that one key? Oh, I don't know. It's it's somewhere. And then he's pressuring her until she has to show him the key. It has bloodstains. He's like, you're just like all the rest. I'm gonna kill you now. And her brothers arrive just in time to chop off his head instead, and so she inherits all of his riches.
He must have loved that.
How is it that we've
for
like
me.
already gotten at least as
The house didn't blow itself
gruesome, if
down,
not
Bigby.
more, than True
That's
Crime
all I'm
Week?
saying. Do with that what you will. Now,
That's-
I'm not
I
saying
mean,
it's reason enough.
honestly-
It's
You've
incredible.
Definitely been offered a drink, but it would have
Yeah,
eased
we-
some of the pain you
When we're
once
talking about
caused
true
me.
crime.
yes.
It was so.
It also would have shown
There
everyone
was so
how
much
different
that like
we
we didn't want to say because it was so
If that was all you were saying,
gruesome
I'd be able
about
to get
like
some rest.
real
I'll
life.
take it all back.
I think that that's
This
part of
is
the
why
that's
everyone
the big
hates you.
difference, right? Like this like fairy tale is in another world or a world adjacent to ours
So,
or in this sort of
everyone
like
hates me.
next door but parallel universe
Nah,
kind of
I'm just
space
giving you shit.
where
I'm
true
doing my
crime is
best
like
here.
Clearly, that
It
is not
happened!
true. What
It
with the
really did!
selfishness with the bourbon.
next door or whatever,
But,
you know.
no.
Yeah.
And-
hates
Yeah,
them all.
Fairy tales.
They
Go ahead.
fear you more than anything.
Fairy tales are very explicitly,
Like
again,
a
like
lot of
the
people
opening
back in
formula
your
of
day.
Once Upon a Time or
Thought we were all
Once in a
supposed to
Land
have a
Far
fresh
Away.
start here.
It does explicitly
Can't
set them
change
off
the
as being
past.
fictional
Well, you
in some
can't
kind of
change
imagined,
people's
often
memories either.
medieval-ish past. It's never really specified, or
I'm not
occasionally it
saying
is,
it's
sometimes in
fair,
kind of racist ways.
But it's real.
Oh, the king of China's daughter. We're gonna go get her because she's hot, kind of a thing. Like the object of a question is like,
was scared of you.
But it's very much like mythical,
mean,
magical past, far, far
look at
away,
your
fictional.
hands.
Whereas, yeah, you're totally right. Other genres, other narrative genres like true crime or like urban legends,
Who'd
which
you get in a
purports
fight
to
with?
have possibly
A
have
fool,
happened
right?
recently or near
I'm sure
here.
you're not going around
They just
punching Mondays.
they're different. And
was
I mean, the
my
thing
fault.
about fairy tales is even though
I
they're
get the impression
fictional
you've seen it
and
a lot.
fantastical, they still connect back to our reality, if not
Mhm.
explicitly,
You
like
think
no
my
magic
job is
talking
easy?
animals.
You try keeping a bunch of
Something about,
fables
you
from
know,
killing each other.
emotions or
How do you think this all
symbols
works?
or human
I don't know.
experiences gets kind of
How?
coded metaphorically through
big
fairy tales.
And being bad.
By being big and being bad.
Absolutely.
Don't say that shit in front of people. It's
I
embarrassing.
I loved
kinda can't
talking
get
talking animals. Like the minute
That's
we've
the
got one of the
attitude
three
that
little
gets you in
pigs like with a
trouble.
cigarette in his
I'm
mouth.
sure you
I'm
were
just
shit
like,
I
yeah,
was-
that doesn't happen in real life,
Cross
but
tonight.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
Name
I
one.
can't get over the fact that this pig is just smoking a cigarette there. No big deal.
I don't actually know her name.
Speaking of that,
Awesome. Great
Mario says
example.
the wolf huff and puff, and the pig stayed on the chair.
Life is easier. with
I
friends.
nudged him. I nudged him and he got
Yeah.
off.
A long fucking time.
Yeah, yeah. And then
I know you like this whole
Rebecca says,
lone
"I
wolf
want a
thing you got
retelling
going
where
for
the
yourself.
Bluebeard or where
But I've
Bluebeard
seen the way you
married
look
the
at Snow,
green
okay?
ribbon."
You're not fooling me.
Will you
And
shut
Death
up?
Florist echoes that that is a
Well,
match.
maybe if my
and-
throat wasn't
and
so
that
parched,
she'd
I
read
wouldn't
that
have to keep
fanfic.
talking.
Wait, that doesn't make
Just
sense.
give me a drink, please.
It would be good.
Colin, enough already. I haven't slept in 2 days.
Hmm.
I went out a
Co-
second
I do,
story
yeah, I
window
do
and
love that the
I want to
pig's
get
name
in
is
2
just
seconds
Colin.
and shut eye.
Such a regular
Look.
name.
I
Like-
love animals with regular names.
Yeah, all right.
Oh my gosh.
Probably.
Yes, just like George, Fred,
Colin.
Let's get the pig drunk.
Colin.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
please get the pig drunk.
Yes. We've
Thanks,
already
Bigby.
established that this pig has agency. He asked you for the cigarette earlier. It's fine.
He's gotta lap it up.
This is not unlike what happens in Disenchantment.
This is like, but it's also like not unlike what happens when you leave your bowl of cereal near a cat.
Yes. True. Surely You Can't Be says, "Holy shit, we live a long time. Are the fables like semi-immortal personifications of their stories?"
Yes. Pretty, yeah, that's,
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay.
The only thing I might disagree with is personification. But
What about
Come with
okay,
me.
okay.
Oh.
American Gods. Is this related?
oh,
Snow.
that's a whole can of worms, right?
Snow.
What?
Yeah, no, I'm here for it. I
Okay.
teach American
Sorry.
Gods where I can.
What is it?
But I mean, I think so. You know, again,
In
different
front of
narrative
the
genres have
building.
different
get
expectations,
there
different
right.
relationships to reality,
Fine.
and different tropes that tend to
Hello.
appear in
Good
them.
morning. Or-
You know, fairy tales, you know, fictional, formulaic, fantastical in nature.
Mhm.
American Gods is more about myth in the sense of a sacred creation narrative about the
These
start of the
walls are
world.
paper
Yeah.
thin.
So, you know, myth and religion can kind of overlap. Obviously,
need
if
to
you're a
be
believer in
careful.
that religion, you're
We'll
a
talk
believer in
outside.
how the world came to be in that faith. So I would situate American Gods as being more about the mythic side of things, and then you get the gods that immigrants to America brought with them, and their belief makes them real. In Fables, no one believes in Fabeltown because they're trying to stay hidden.
Yeah.
So they're
Right.
cut off from their source. So and again, like I don't remember enough of how the original graphic novel series goes and how it ends and blah blah blah. But I don't know if they're supposed to be like actual like manifestations or archetypes of their genre, or if they're just kind of like they come from a place where folks are kind of magical and kind of immortal, and that just stuck with them.
Yeah, I think it's more number 2 there, if I remember correctly. That they come from a magical place and they've had to escape into the mundane world because they were getting hunted in the homeland.
Mm-hmm.
The homeland that is legit. Oh God.
All right, beheading.
Oh.
Well, Snow
you
Snow
did.
was walking
You-
briskly, like there was
you
something
whisper.
bad to show
She's-
us.
Yeah.
She's not a Mundy, right?
Oh.
Who was
Okay.
And Daisy, a Mundi
I knew
is
everyone.
someone who lives in the mundane world.
she? She looks familiar.
Got
I
it.
Can't place her though.
I was gonna say, what?
A working
I mean,
girl.
A working girl.
the mundane world.
don't-
I mean, that on its
I mean,
own is so
I am a
interesting.
working. Oh,
Oh, Jim Leahy's online.
Oh my gosh.
The woodsman. He attacked her. I stepped in. And he threatened to kill us both.
Why does he have
No.
super smell?
You
This
don't
is
think
what
he...
this is what I want to know.
Why doesn't he have super smell?
Why? Yeah, because he's
It's
a
just-
wolf man.
I want to
right?
say he has to be fully wolf in order. He has to like werewolf out to
took me
do
a
super
second to
smell.
realize what I was even
Hmm.
looking at.
So,
Okay,
you found her.
I'll
I
leave
did.
it there, but
She was just like
super
this. I
smell is by
didn't touch
far
her.
my
I
favorite
grabbed Grimble's jacket to cover her with.
superpower of
Then
any super.
I came
If
to
I,
get you
and
right
that's how I
away.
always answer that question.
No one else was
If
with
somebody's
you?
like, "What superpower?"
You
would
want to be able to have dog smell?
I
Bigby,
always say
would one
super
of
smell with the
us
caveat of
do
being
this?
impartial
There
to
hasn't been a
all
murder on
smells. So I
Fabeltown in
can't
a
like
long
or
time.
dislike any
more
smell, but
reason we
I
shouldn't start
do
a
want to
panic
smell
before we
people
know what's
before they
going
walk
on.
in the room. And like know who is going to approach.
Have a look around. We don't have much time.
And it
before people
seems
will be
like
coming
Bigby
through.
could have this, but alas, especially as a detective, this would be a very good. This would be a very good skill to have. Gasp!
Oh, why do I have to examine the
What?
neck wound?
was
You have to
placed
like
here with some
open her
care.
eye?
What do you
What?
mean?
No, I'm
Oh, okay.
See that
detectiving.
someone didn't just toss
Okay,
her
okay.
here.
There's been a
It was
homicide.
deliberately placed
Okay, you're just
For us.
looking close.
to find.
What kind of monster would do this?
What kind of monster would do this? Jeana, do you have any ideas what kind of monster would do this? Or do you already know?
What is?
I did read the game summary on
Okay.
Wikipedia. I will
Okay,
confess.
okay. Well, I don't
Um,
know. I don't know yet. Then maybe don't spoil.
If I remember correctly, it's kind of a case of mixing genres.
Some kind of
Oh.
symbol here.
Huh. I
Yeah.
don't
What?
recognize it.
Neither do I.
This ring.
A ring and a ribbon. There's a lot going on.
Oh, I think I have an
What could do
idea.
something
This looks
like
like
that?
Among Us.
Either something very
There's
sharp.
Yes,
like
it
there's a
does.
ham bone cut.
Magic attached to it.
We've got a question in the chat. Does the game and or comic touch on how aware the characters are of their folklore or folktale status in the world? Are they self-aware?
Yes, I believe they're self-aware, and the person who
sorry.
has a big head
This is
about it
just
the most is
So
Jack.
surreal.
That makes sense.
Also, Prince Charming or former Prince Charming.
Oh yes,
Um,
Prince Charming.
What do you
He's
want to do next?
Daisy. He is every Prince Charming. It was one guy. One
Yeah.
guy with four exes who were mad at him.
Yeah. Although, like, the interesting thing about Fables is, again, like, from what I recall of it,
Okay. Good idea.
there's this land that they all came from, which is like generic fairy tale fantasy land, but there were other lands as well. So there was kind of a more
You all right?
Wizard of Oz
Yes.
type land and a
Thanks.
more
you should hurry, we
Narnia
don't
type
have much
land, and
time
those all
left.
got taken
We
over
should
by
head
the
back
adversary
inside.
before these guys
There's
went.
like an Arabian Nights land.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
do see some like genre mixing of different types of things that are kind of on the more literary end of the spectrum versus the more folk end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
See.
Nobody there.
Love the way people in Telltale games walk. Like, oh, this is a normal human gait.
Speaking of that, I know you've
Where are
never
you
played
going?
Skyrim.
Are we done?
Jeana, have you heard of or played Skyrim before?
I've heard of it, I've never played it.
Okay.
Uh,
There's a
no, not
person
yet.
on TikTok who like very very early on in TikTok who does Skyrim in real life, where he's like a real life person who walks like a video game character
my
like in
God.
Skyrim and like impersonates the dialogue from the characters just like that. He'll like walk into a wall, like turn like on a dime like yeah. It's very funny, and he like impersonates any of the random characters that you run into frequently.
That sounds funny.
Dom, I think I know what you
Done?
have to record for TikTok after after this
What?
stream.
Oh, is it
ends.
just me walking
Yes.
as Bigby Wolf?
Yes.
I've seen enough.
We've got a couple
But-
in the chat.
Okay.
Movie idea: Prince Charming must die. Prince Charming would be played by Jesse
should-
Metcalf.
Move her. before anyone shows up. We'll find out more at the business
sure,
office.
that sounds fun.
She'll be in the books.
Um,
I'm sure of it.
And then,
Bigby, do you
a lot
have
of people
any
making
idea what's
Skyrim
going
jokes.
on? How did this happen? Why her?
This is
How
the
did this
message.
happen?
Daisy, another thing I'm thinking of Fables Prince Charming. Cinderella's like a
Complaints
secret
at the
agent
office all the time, but
Oh, hell yeah.
because
What
she's
about this
good
makes
at,
you think
you know, disguises and going undercover.
Yes.
okay.
That's so good.
I guess I'll have to trust you on this one.
Sorry, I didn't click it fast enough.
I just...
I'm
R.I.P.
gonna
for the
have to talk
head
to
they're
Crane
just
about
leaving
this.
there. I guess.
As
Where-
long as King Cole is gone, he's acting mayor. He needs to know.
This is green...
And
okay,
he's
okay.
going
This
to find
is...
out anyway. So
Without
we may as well get
spoilers,
out in
this
front
is
of it.
green ribbon,
guess
right?
it's
Do
useless
they
to
not
drag
know?
it out.
Do they not know about
That's
the
how I
other
feel
fairy
too.
tales?
I'm sure he won't be happy, but
They generally know about the other fairy tales, but I think they
Hopefully he'll be
don't,
rational.
like, they don't all know
Hold
who's
my
who's
breath.
here and who's not.
I'm not.
Like, who made it across
Just
the
don't want him interfering.
veil.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Crane's not what's important right now. We need to figure out who this
Who
girl
would
was so we
untie
can find
this
whoever
ribbon?
did this. Take this back to Dr.
Who would
Swinehart.
take the
He can
scarf?
take a look at it. I'll meet you at the business office.
It's 9:45 because we had a late start. Do we want to call it here or keep it going a little bit longer?
I'm good with
Gina, what
whatever.
are you doing? Okay, you're
I'm
good.
fine.
Okay. We can go a little. Let's go a little bit longer,
What are
and
you,
then
blind?
we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come
You
back,
don't
and we
see
could
there's
do
a
our
line?
more formal,
I've been
fun
standing here
interview
a
with
half hour
Gina,
already.
which
get to just
will
walk in?
have no game as a
Must be nice
distraction,
being
but
the
rather
sheriff. Do
highlight all
whatever
of
the fuck you
your
like.
work
I work
and
here.
all the
And
cool
what
stuff that you
great
have
work
answers
you
to that
do,
we have
Sheriff.
questions for.
All right.
I guess it's a way to say that. Okay, what's
Fucker.
business? This is the business office where business happens. I'm Bigby. I do
Yeah,
business.
so this is the mayor's office, I guess,
Yep.
and the mayor in residence is Ichabod Crane, who's another character from a more literary side of things rather than
Yep.
the folk side of things.
The last thing
That's
I
so
need with Mayor
interesting.
Cole away is a hysteria.
That
Do you
Ichabod?
understand me?
Yep.
Yes, of course I
Don't
do.
It's
interrupt me,
exactly
Miss
how I
Snow.
would have imagined.
You asked me a question.
Don't change the subject. You are to blame for this unpleasantness,
Luomi
Miss
in the
Snow.
chat says never
brought
trust
you
the
this news as
character
soon
with
as
the
I
soul
could.
patch.
You are trusted to keep things running smoothly around here. This is a disaster.
It isn't anyone's fault. Instead of trying to assign blame, maybe we should figure out how to catch the fucker who did this.
Oh, is that how you
I
see
love
things?
that they curse.
Sheriff,
Not a game for kids. I didn't
Yeah.
really realize.
This is adult.
There's
Adult
in issue 1 of Fables, there's like a very gruesome murder scene.
Suspect?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Anything at all. Any shred of evidence you two know what the hell you're doing.
The woodsman is a person of interest.
Bubbly,
From what we've
Bubbly
been able
like
to
Soda
gather,
said,
he
is
was
his
last
head
seen with the
huge?
victim.
The
Are you talking
woodsman.
about Ichabod?
I think
I
he's
think
just
it's more.
It's only
he's got an unfortunate
Worse.
facial hair shape.
Well, find him. Get him in here if that's all
more
you
that
have to
his
go on.
body is
You
small.
two need to get a handle on the situation quickly and quietly. The last thing we need is all of Fabeltown knowing there's a killer amongst us. Snow,
Yes, sir.
call Vivian right this minute and let her know I'm coming in early for my massage.
Mario makes a pun.
I will.
What are you talking about? There have always been curses in fairy
Where is the
tales.
bottle of wine you were to purchase? Don't bother.
Dr.
Forget it.
Dom hates puns.
Right.
I just
Do your job,
it's
Sheriff.
whatever.
Or we'll find someone who can.
It's whatever.
Yeah, Ichabod does sort of have a bobblehead.
You would have just pissed him off more.
All right.
Okay.
Well, that could have gone better.
Does
Well,
Bigby have
maybe we
just
should have
like
dragged it
a
out.
ton of
For what it's worth,
tattoos
I
and
still
or
think it was
scars
better to
underneath
tell him.
this
Yeah,
shirt?
maybe.
Tattoos.
I don't think he has
Yes.
tattoos. I don't really remember,
Crane
but
I don't
doesn't
think
like
so.
people smoking and
No, he's just
Oh.
hairy.
Okay.
Never mind. Smoke away.
Because it would be pretty cool, like, if
What
he
an
had it
asshole.
like an apple. Instead of like
That
the
was about
mom
an 8
heart
on the
tattoo,
asshole
it was like
scale.
an apple.
Asshole
And it said
scale?
grandma.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say grandma.
Yeah, grandma. Or something like that.
Oh, here's another
Gone.
literary.
What is this?
It's a literary creature.
What? Gina, explain what the heck this
Flying monkey,
alcoholic
Wizard of
flying
Oz.
monkey?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's Fly Monkey, Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
Drinking this early? Where did you get
I
that?
believe his name's
It was
Buffkin.
by Mr. Ichabod's desk.
I think so, yeah.
And don't you think it
You can talk.
probably belongs to him?
Maybe.
What? Where is eyes?
I love that you're having such a good time just reacting to who shows up.
It hasn't
I know,
been
I'm
very
like not
long.
following the plot very close, but
Not your fault.
wow,
Thanks
I
for asking.
honestly did not expect
Buffkin,
Wizard of
get the
Oz to
books.
show up
Which
in this,
books?
but I suppose
The
it
ones
makes
with all the
sense.
fables in it.
Not sure that was
Yeah,
specific.
it's one of those
Frank,
things that
the
got kind
first
of just
three.
coded as a fairy
Be back
tale,
in a
even
few
though it was
minutes.
based on novels by Frank Baum, and like it
Mhm.
just became part of the collective
He knows what we're
consciousness,
talking
pop
about.
culture version of this
There's
is also a
bound to be
fairy tale.
information
So
over
we're just gonna
here.
see a bunch of stuff.
Somewhere.
I don't know.
We'll at
Yeah,
least be able
there's
to get
magic,
her
there's
real name
fiction.
from the books whenever Buffkin finds them.
Fairy tale
In
now.
the meantime, poke around. Maybe the mirror can help.
Okay, Gina, what is
I really have to get
a
this appointment squared
fairy
away, but
tale
let me know if
by
you need anything.
canon or by pop culture that you think
Hello,
should not be included in the canon or
Okay, you want
as a-
both?
Oh my gosh, yes! This would be awesome. I don't know if this is like too early for this, but yes.
Magic mirror.
I
Got a
mean, I
question.
feel like, depending on how you define fairy tale, the answer changes,
I
but
don't have time for this
they're
shit.
tales,
Your
they're
impatience is
fictional, they
cattle.
often have
You're
quests, there's
needlessly
magic, there's
cruel,
transformations,
but
you
have
follow
some
protagonists
respect
as they
for
go
our
from
strict
sort of
rules.
youthful and maybe like not quite mature to
Mirror,
they
mirror.
pass a test, or
If
they
you're able,
develop a conscience,
tell
or they
me all
help
about
old
this
people or
fable.
something.
See,
They demonstrate their
was that
maturity, they're
so
rewarded with
hard?
magical gifts. Most
Yeah,
fairy
I'm about
tales
2
end
seconds away
in
from
marriage and
kicking a
ascension to
hole
the
in
throne,
you.
and also punishing the
There's
villain.
no need for
Um,
that.
So, like you could say Wizard of
Of
Oz
which
is a fairy
fable
tale.
do
So
you
like
wish
I'll
to
let
know?
that one slide. But I don't know. Chronicles of Narnia. I feel like that one is way
Show me
too
the
like
woodsman.
Christian allegory.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
really feel
I
like
agree
a
with
fairy,
that.
like you have talking animals.
Where is he?
The
What
line
you
is
see
Jesus.
The woodsman
Yeah.
stumbles down the street.
Yeah, so that's
No
one
shit.
of them. Or like
Which
Peter
street?
Pan or
I'm sorry,
Pinocchio. I know
but
those got
I
claimed
can
by
only
Disney, but
show
I'm kind of
you
like,
what
eh.
can be seen.
Okay, I think those are probably going to be more contentious for the chat.
I don't know her
I
name.
get
Not
Chronicles
good.
All right,
of
right,
Narnia.
right.
Well,
Yeah, Chronicles of Narnia, I'm
I
with
can't
you.
help you.
And I also think, I mean, kind of
Nobody
under
right now.
the descriptions that
Very
were
well.
just
Please
given, like
return
Harry
should you wish to
Potter
ask
seems like
about
it could
someone
fit in
else.
that. I'm
Or
not.
someone
I don't
new.
think Harry Potter's a fairy tale. I don't think Chronicles of Narnia is a fairy tale. But I think I don't know enough about like the history of something like Pinocchio. I
Yeah.
think it gets
Well, I'm
lumped in
sure
with
we'll
all
get it all
that
cleared
Disney
up.
stuff for me.
Okay.
It's that Disney
Yeah,
stuff.
it was based
Thank
on a novel by Italian author, I want to say Collodi. I'm not super familiar with the publication history, but yeah, that's one. Again, like
Yeah.
having literary origins doesn't disqualify something from being a fairy tale, but it can really just depend. Like, for example, Hans Christian Andersen was a Danish author in the mid 1800s who actually wrote tons of stuff. He wrote plays and poems and travelogues, and he wrote like 3 different
Pretty much
memoirs and
just
autobiographies and fairy tales, and like that's what he became known for. And
Mhm.
so some of his tales clearly are coextensive with oral tradition. Like he has a tale called The Wild Swans, which is a telling of tale type 451, the maiden who seeks her brothers, they've been turned into birds. But then he has completely original fairy tales, like Andersen's The Little Mermaid was the first of its kind. Like there were legends about mermaid sightings that were told as though they were true, but you didn't
Mhm.
see a lot of mermaids showing up in fairy tales, and certainly not as the protagonists of their own stories. So that's all Andersen, but that is clearly a fairy tale in the way that we think about it these
We'll
days. And
start
of
with
course,
these.
Disney totally
Any
changed it
information
because
on fables in
Andersen's
our community
had
will
her
be
dying
somewhere
and
in
basically
these
turning into
books.
seafoam because the prince didn't choose her.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it's complicated, and I'm not trying to be like the fairy tale purity police here, but I do think it's important that people kind of know some of the history behind fairy tales.
Speaking of
Okay, well-
speaking of the history behind fairy tales, we've got the sort of history behind all the characters right here, Daisy. So you know these two.
Yeah. Yes.
He's got a rose. She's taking his
Mhm.
beastly exterior off.
Yes.
Here are my nemesis, and my nemesis and my arch enemy. There's
Yes.
me.
Uh-huh.
There's Snow and her gang
Yeah.
and her
Yeah.
mob
They
of
look pretty
hooligans.
menacing.
Oh shit, that's Donkey
Oh.
Skin. Oh, that's her dad wanted to marry her, unless I'm mistaken.
I've seen this
Oh.
before.
That's okay.
This
That's
symbol on the man's clothes.
It's
the same
just
as
so
the
you know,
rings.
we just got
Could be her father.
3 awesome
husband.
questions in the chat, and like I
This has
kind of
most
want
of
to
the
ask you
emblems
now,
of
but I
the
think we
old
should cut
days
to a
and
quick
usually
break
what
and
family
then
they
come
come from.
back for
If
the
it's in
formal
here,
interview, and I'll
we'll have
save
her
them
name.
for then because they are very good. Unless
Well-
you really, really want to answer them right now.
Well, no, I can
Okay.
say I think we can cut to a break here.
Yeah.
I want to say for right now, if for people follow, or for I guess you following the mystery, Daisy. Yeah, the king's surcoat has the same insignia as the ring we found in her mouth.
dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. Oh, look, also my boys.
Yeah.
That's the ring.
What's like the furthest back? So then there's
Ichabod
Ichabod,
Crane.
right?
Oh, there's Ichabod. Oop, I didn't mean to.
Yeah. Ooh.
I didn't mean to click on that.
Scared shitless.
What's that?
Your boss. His finest moment.
And then we got
I don't understand how he ended up running this place.
we got Badger
Well,
time too.
Maybe it's time that changed.
Okay.
Here I'm trying to.
Yes.
There's Toad.
That's not the Mr. Toad, right?
It's
What
the
is-
who? Wait, the Mr. Toad? Is that like a guy you know? Or you mean
Yeah,
from
like I'm from Frog and Toad.
I think
the-
that's supposed to be Frog and Toad, if I'm not mistaken.
Are you really? Is Frog and Toad a fairy tale?
Children's literature got kind of swooped in. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Again.
Borderline.
But
Oh.
to be real, his head looks so much smaller there. Maybe it's because he looks better in profile.
Oh my gosh. Okay, this is great. Let's cut to a break. Jeana, you're gonna absolutely love these questions that we got in the chat. They're very good.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think you're gonna have a really fun time answering some of them because they're right up your alley. James said apparently it's from Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Well, but where do you think that comes from?
Yeah, I was like, what's that from?
The Wind in the Willows, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what I remember. Yeah.
I think
All right, should we take a break and should you reveal yourself to Jeana? Oh, do you see?
Oh, I see.
I went in.
What
We
big
got-
eyes you have.
Exactly.
The better to read the questions in chat.